what we're going to do, or it's morning where I am, sorry, if you're watching a recording, that is. What I want to do is talk about the hidden job market, which is something which has been spoken about many times in many different ways. And I think I like to keep coming back to it because essentially, whether you talk about hidden jobs or unadvertised jobs, same thing. It does make people think a bit. Some people scratch their heads about how do I get into this market? Is there such a thing really? And it often requires a bit of revisiting. It's very easy for people to ignore it and just go through and focus very much on advertised roles. So, the summation of everything that I'm going to talk to you about today is try and think of your job search in a different way. If you're just talking to recruiters, if you are just putting applications in and applications with a covering note or whatever it might be, the traditional ways, just think about other ways that you could conduct your job search. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve. I'm MD of Executive Connexions. We've been going since 2014. We offer outplacement and career coaching to primarily senior level executives, but over the past few years, we have started to work with different people regarding various sort of larger scale redundancies that have happened and so on. This series of webinars is really around what are the touch points in a job search that most people we would recommend need to really have some knowledge of. And it's important that if you are a candidate at the moment and you're in an active search at the moment, that you get as much of this sort of ammunition and be the best candidate that you can be. So that's why we put these series out there. We've got, they tend to run maybe once or twice a month on different subject areas. There will be a way to have a one-to-one conversation with me if you haven't done that already, if you want to kind of accelerate the conversation and not wait until the next subject happens to be coming up. But today it's going to be about the hidden job market. Just like to show a couple of people that have worked with us, real people, real individuals. Hopefully that means that what I'm talking to you about today is grounded in fact. I realize there's lots of different takes on the hidden job market and how much people either believe in it or activate it or use it in their job search. But all the people that we work with, and these are just a small sample, would be taking on board that advice and those kind of strategies, and leads to their success, which is obviously what we want for all of you guys. So, are the best jobs out of reach? Probably most of the time, in terms of the conversations that I have, I tend to speak to a lot of people where they may have been in a job search for a long time. They're kind of doing similar things, but not getting results. It's either going to come down to the CV isn't getting the interviews, or at interview, not getting across the finish line. I think it probably comes down to those things. But even before that, it's about accessing better roles. So think of it as a changeable description: hidden job market, unadvertised job market. It's the same thing in essence. So when you look at the amount of, or the percentage of jobs that are never advertised, why are 30% of people scrambling around for all the jobs that that kind of are advertised, shall we say? So think about percentages, think about that likelihood, and think about how worthwhile is it to start marketing yourself a bit more, because this is what it will come down to. As far as the invitation is concerned, if you have if we haven't spoken previously and you're thinking, well, I'm doing certain things in my job search, don't seem to be getting anywhere, I'll put a link to an invite and we can have a one-to-one, and that I'll put a link to that. It'll be in the chat as well, and I'll reiterate it at the end. So I've talked about this already. So it's unadvertised or hidden jobs that are not advertised publicly. A lot of executive roles get filled in this way. It's a question of who knows who knows who knows who, the little book of contacts. So just keep in your mind that the best roles are not always on the job boards. Sometimes, this feeds into personalities, because if you're much more towards the introverted end of the scale, you'll probably shy away from doing things that involving self-marketing. Some of the things I'm going to talk about, like posting things on LinkedIn or beefing up your LinkedIn profile a bit. And as I often say, getting across more people's radar, which is the whole point of doing it. It's not about an ego trip. But if you're more introverted, I understand that's difficult. So you have to do it in a way that suits your personality. But I would say whatever you do, if you're not getting the results, do something different. Think about doing something different. So why do they use this market? It is cost a lot of the time. It's quite expensive in terms of advertising and recruitment. A lot of organizations do rely heavily on internal referral schemes where they will reward their staff financially for giving access to their own social networks, just feeling that they can get better candidates by doing it that way, some of the time. So I think it's just keeping those things in mind, that it's something that isn't just high in the sky. This is not something I'm saying because I've got some hidden agenda about promoting the hidden market. It is there, and it just involves you reaching out and being a bit more proactive than you might be at the moment. All the groups on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm not just talking about LinkedIn, but groups in terms of accessing colleagues and accessing opportunities. You've got specific networking groups, which I know some of you are members of. They may be actual live attendance, they might be online attendance, but certainly, there are a few relevant groups on LinkedIn if you can avoid the kind of more spammy ones, or the ones that have got, too many members, so your message just isn't going to get through. But think about, you can search, once you're a member of a group, you can search within that group, in quite a detailed search actually, for people that might be relevant for you to network with. When I say engage in thought leadership, I'm talking about that whole process around not just liking, commenting, sharing of posts, but actually creating your own as well. Perhaps a couple of times a week, and brainstorm those subject areas that you want to post about. I would suggest that they are subject areas that are close to your professional practice, and that you can speak from a position of authority, because that whole thought leadership and authority piece is important. You want to come across as that individual, and you want to attract opportunities to you. That's another phrase to sort of think about and mull over, and it can happen. When I talk about networking discussions, they can be known as informational interviews, but pretty much you're networking with people where you are just trying to find out a bit more about their company, their organization, their role, what they're doing. This is if you're looking to maybe move laterally, using a bit of transferable skills, looking to move slightly sideways without having too much of a salary sacrifice in the process. Just finding out how that particular industry works, getting some insider knowledge, bringing your knowledge to the table as well. That's really important during those kind of conversations. So think about being where the people that you want to see you are going to be. We know that LinkedIn's a major player, but I think there will be private and particular sector networking groups and face-to-face events that, there'll be too many of them to sort of list, but you will know them. And I would say there's still value in attending those. Worth remembering that phrase at the top as well. One thing I'd say about net worth and network also is that people will often go crazy on this during the job search and then drop it like a stone once they're in the role. So once you're in the next role, assuming you're in a job search, then think about how you can keep the networking going. People that you've come into contact with during your job search, people that you've come into contact with in new roles, in new situations, new conversations that you're having, maybe once a week for an hour, maybe once a month for a couple of hours, whatever it is, keep the networking going. But anyway, I digress, as I often do. 85% of jobs filled through networking. That should tell you as much as you need to know. If you put that stat right in front of everything, that tells you networking unwraps the hidden job market, shall we say. So it's another reason just to keep networking. Don't get despondent, don't be discouraged, stay resilient. It's not going to work immediately. It could do, but it's not going to work immediately usually, and just keep pushing and keep pushing, and just stay strong throughout that process. So networking is really, really important. If you're not really engaging in it, Are you using all of your LinkedIn Connect requests as just one example? Then think about ramping up what you're doing. And yeah, it is a numbers game to some extent, but you want it to be, as much as you can, a selective numbers game. And again, probably this is the kind of thing we're covering. We've talked about. I would say I think it's important to make sure that when you revisit your LinkedIn profile, that you've got all the pieces populated. The top header, banner, your photograph, is it up to date? Your headline, is it saying how you help organizations, or is it a long list of job titles? There's an argument that either is fine. But whatever you've got there, is it all populated? If you've got previous roles, it's opportunities to put keywords in for phrases that you want to be found for. Again, you're drawing things to you by doing it in that way. So think about not just having the profile. Yeah, oh, it looks great. Think about how you can really, really beef it up and really expand on what you've got. But the participation is the thing that people can sometimes shy away from. The profile's one thing, then what do you do with it? So I'd say posting a couple of times a week, liking, commenting, sharing on other posts within your sector. If you were in, I don't know, supply chain, for example, you could put hashtag supply chain in LinkedIn, and you'll be able to search for groups and news and comments and articles and posts all relating to that given subject area. So just think about leveraging the hashtag approach on LinkedIn. You can then save it. It goes down the side of your profile, so you'll always see it there. And every so often, you're going in and looking at what's new. You're just looking to be seen. What's the phrase I use? Get across more people's radar. That's the whole point in doing this. I don't think many people use this actually, but there is a facility still to use your, assuming you have one, an alumni network. See what people are doing now. They could have gone off in a totally different direction. They could have been, they could be totally in an utterly different sector than yourself. It might be totally irrelevant to you, or it may feel like it's totally irrelevant. But people will often know some other people who will know some other people, and that's really, really important to bear in mind. So if you're not using it at all, just sort of research your old sort of university and just see whether or not you can actually have some conversations and keep building and keep expanding your network. Dorcas, if you can hear me, because of the way my screen is structured, it's quite difficult to let people in. I see someone's waiting in the waiting room. If you could let them in, possibly. Or maybe I'm just still seeing the notification here and they're already in. So engaging with recruiters, not ignoring recruiters totally, of course, they can be part of that hidden market as well. They often really know what's happening in the industry, but conversely, they're not going to be dealing with every single role that's out there. So it's important, and it's part of the actual job search. Of course, I would always suggest keeping a quite a small selection of recruiters to actually work with. I'd say that's quite important, and it's part and parcel of the job search. But what most people will do, if you view the job search as a pie chart, I mean, however that's broken down, it will usually be broken down primarily of speculative approaches, maybe, but responding to advertised roles, speaking to recruiters or headhunters. It won't very often be filled with a nice chunk of marketing myself, posting, liking, sharing, commenting, and all of that. All of that is going to get you across more people's radar, and that's the important part. This branding part goes through to most people's opportunities to do this would be LinkedIn. It would be a primary marketing platform. So I think it's really important not just to make sure your profile is sort of up and running, but that you are utilizing your connect request maximum capacity and posting a couple of times a week. And don't be put off if the first couple of posts that you put out there are, it's kind of nothing happens, no views, no likes, no comments, no shares. I'm always reminded of a story someone told me that became a client of another business that I know, and the client had been viewing that person's posts, but had never once liked or commented or shared or done anything like that. So people will see what you're putting out there. It doesn't always mean that they're going to interact with it. So and if they want to look at your profile, of course, you can check that out in your Who's Viewed My Profile section on LinkedIn. If you've got other digital platforms, if you are the kind of person who loves, social, you've not only got your LinkedIn, you're a thought leader in a certain area, and you've got a Instagram account, you've got a YouTube channel, you do a podcast, whatever it is you do, just keep that consistency, that branding consistency, from sort of header images to photographs to, keep it all together. This is you marketing yourself to the world, and you do want people to think of you first. That's the point. It might not be something right now that they need. Big difficulty with this is in a job search, you are going to get kind of angsty at some point. You're going to get desperate. You're going to start feeling a bit needy with all of this. So it's important to try, however you can manage that, to keep that to one side, to keep that in one side of your mind, so to speak, and just to keep that magnetic personal brand pushing and pushing all the time. Enough said. I think I've kind of said this in the previous slide already. I think it's really important to just keep going. Don't run a few posts, think nothing's working, and then give up. Just keep it going regularly. The more you can do, the better. The more people will see your posts, and it's just important to keep that whole thing going. I mentioned at the top the audit session. What I mean by that is I'm going to, if we have previously spoken, that is, the link will be in the chat as well. This page comes up because many people view the recordings and they won't see the chat, obviously. But what we can do on this call is to dig a bit deeper into your own situation. It just gives an opportunity to have a one-to-one conversation. It's a no obligation call. Yes, we'll tell you about our services and how we feel we can help you. But the call is, in its essence, designed to be helpful. And oftentimes we see people in HR that view our recordings as well. So there's a separate link there if you want to have a conversation about any kind of redundancy situations within your organization. So we are almost at the point of coming back into the room for questions. I know we've got a couple of other coaches on this call, so I might be picking on you to make a comment or two. We shall see. But think about your take on the hidden job market. Think about any other areas that you might want to discuss. You can see the other event we've got here. If you're struggling with interviews, or if you're struggling with getting interviews, they're two distinct separate subjects, but this one's about the interview that we're running next. Now, if that's top of mind, feel free to ask that question. So I am more than happy to sort of take questions on any given area, and will do my best. And if my colleagues or other participants want to chip in, you're more than welcome to do that. So come back into the room and see what we've got. Got the links there. Okay, so thoughts on the hidden job market, guys? Give me a chance to have a drink of water. 1 second.
So, Steve, I'm going to ask a question whilst you have a swig of water, if I may.
You,
so, morning, everyone, or for those that are in the UK, anyway, good morning. Steve, I've got a question. So, the bit I struggle with is trying to come up with something to post on LinkedIn. So I completely understand, engage on LinkedIn, don't just comment, but, put on your own posts. And it's the bit that I sort of struggle with is kind of, where do I get inspiration, if that makes sense? I'm not a particularly creative individual. So that's, so any tips that you might have for us on sort of, how to get inspiration? I work in HR, but I'm, any tips you've got just in general?
Yes. Okay. I think that there would be, you need a list first of all. So how you create that list, whether you like or dislike things like ChatGPT to generate ideas, that is, not to formulate what you're actually going to do, but as a brainstorming exercise, or whether you want to do it from scratch. There will be If you take your job description, even there will be things that you do and things that are challenges within the role, things that are challenges to the kind of organizations that you want to become a part of next. So that's another way to think about it. It would just be in terms of, you said HR, didn't you, Andy? So yeah, so what are the sort of hot topics in HR at the moment? Is AI going to replace blah blah blah? There's going to be some obvious ones, but there's going to be some more subtle ones as well. And a lot of changes obviously have happened very recently in that world. But so that's one way of thinking about it. The other way would be what would be the challenges to an organization that you want to work for, and could you start a conversation off along those lines? So if you can kind of end up making it, a couple of paragraphs, you could have an image if you wanted as well. But always ask a question at the end, not just thoughts question mark, but I'd like to get some views on from fellow HR professionals or anyone else that wants to chip in, blah, 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 blah. While I think of it, and another thing that seems to get some traction are polls as well. So you can create a poll. It's probably best to usually have a straightforward question with a yes or no answer to it, rather than lots and lots of different options. It's up to you, but that's one that I've seen get some quite interesting reactions and traction throughout. So I don't know if that helps, Andy. Happy to keep that conversation going.
Yeah, no, that's really useful. Thank you.
Okay, so will you be going away and doing something, do you think?
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. Perfect. Don't want to put you on the spot with anything like that. But yeah, great. Thanks a lot. So just a question in the chat about ageism, something I certainly become more conscious of every single year. But anyway, how prevalent is this really for senior executive roles? I think it's prevalent. Yeah, there's probably some kind of sweet spot about age where you'd expect someone to be of a certain age to be in a senior level role. But over and above that, I think what can happen up to a certain point, if you're getting a few no's, and you'll get a few no's before you start, to get some more interest in your job search, the internal dialogue will begin, and that's the thing to be conscious of, and that's the thing to sort of control a little bit as best you can. So yes, to Nicholls, it does come up as a topic again and again, for sure. It's been some of our most popular posts that we've put out, and some of the most popular PDFs that we've got for informational PDFs that we've got for download. It's the only subject where I say put on like a horse, put on the blinkers, or if you're in the States, the blinders, and just keep focusing forward, and that's all you can do. You can't change people's views on ageism, however subtle or overt. More likely subtle, isn't it, I guess? But you can just move on to the next opportunity and just try and build that sort of, resilience. We're edging onto a lot of different subjects with that, with ageism, really, that come up again. It's almost like the strength it takes to keep kind of redoing, your job search and keep building up an application that didn't go well, or an interview that didn't go well. All that resilience and all that impact on mental health and as I say, resilience, is really important to bear it in mind, and find whatever methods you use to actually keep yourself strong, keep yourself positive, keep yourself optimistic.
Can I just throw something in, Steve?
Ulrike, hi.
Hi.
How are things with you?
All right. All good. Thank you. The ageism is a very interesting topic, and I just can give an example about two friends, well over 60, basically 67, right? And they needed a job desperately. However, eventually, because they had such a great network they worked with, this person from one company in another country though, but that person knew that one. So basically what happened is that they both got jobs, but only because of their connection. And that you know what you mentioned before. So that person knows this person and that person knows that, and so it goes on. So and then the thing is that those guys, they know these guys. They know they actually deliver, they are reliable, consistent. That's why they've got employed at that age. And that is, yeah. So also private networking, I think, is very important.
Got you. I mean, from your own coaching experience, do you have any other thoughts about how people can maintain resilience throughout a job search? Because I think there's someone must have done a graph on this at some point. There seems to be like a continuum of, optimism, pessimism, salary expectations, that kind of thing. Maybe up to a piece of work on that at some point. But just to keep it simple, have you had any sort of thoughts about how to keep people's motivation?
Yeah, so now it's a good question, Steve. I just had a client this morning, and it's always like she said she's either living in the past where everything was kind of better when she still had a job, or the future, which makes her anxious because the fear of the unknown. So, and for her to stay resilient, she needed to really become more mindful because, because staying focused, but then I just gave her some tools, for example, with breathing. It sounds very simple, but it's just for half a
The
minute.
same thing.
Just sit down and just breathe it, but really deep breathing and breathe it really through, and then you can continue. And it's like a tiny habit which can really make you more resilient in a way that you are being more focused and more optimistic.
Yeah, if you can do some proper controlled breathing, it changes your physiology for
And also like having like a coach, someone like you maybe, just to
yes
to help people to stay really focused.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I'm a great believer in preparation, and some people I was having a chat to someone who described themselves as really introverted the other day. And when you think about it, the whole thing is stacked against anyone on the end of that scale, because if you have to kind of push yourself out there and do your promotion, hidden job market stuff, that's a bit more extrovert in its nature. At an interview, it's a sales meeting, so you have to again go up a notch as to what you might be. So it was just about being important to do things in your own way that are both speaking from the head and from the heart, really. And I know that many other people I've spoken to, they may use sort of health apps and things like that. And there's various sort of ones that I know about. There's various forms of breathing. You might have heard like box breathing and that kind of thing. All these things that, special forces are supposed to use to get themselves in the right mindset. And if they can do it, I guess we can do it.
No, definitely. And I think you need to have a real good support system.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. It is true. Otherwise, it's quite isolated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Got you. Thanks, Ulrika. So, anyone, whether you've got your cameras on or not today, guys, if you want to ask a question, don't feel like asking it here in this forum. If you don't want to do it even in the chat, ping me a conversation through LinkedIn. But you're more than welcome. We've still got a little bit of time. I'm still happy to stay on if we've got more questions. Other than that, the recording will be going out to you guys as well. And you know that I'm always on the end of LinkedIn or on the end of email, depending on what contact you've got for me. But before we get to that point, hidden job market, job interviews, CVs, personal branding, ageism, thought leadership, executive and leadership development, mindfulness, resilience, Any questions around any of those kind of subjects, maybe? I ran out then after 9, but there's probably a lot more than that. Okay, guys, I'll assume that's a no. You're more than welcome, like I say, to come to me through other channels. You've got those official kind of one-to-one links there in the chat. If we've already done that or it's not relevant to you, then I'm always happy to swap notes back and forth on, on LinkedIn as well. Never a problem. Always more than happy to do that. But thank you all for attending today, and thanks for all your input. I appreciate it. I'm going to go and have another cup of coffee now, and I hope you guys have a really, really good day, and look forward to catching up with you.
Thanks very much, Steve.
All the best for now, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye for
Steve.
now.
Thank you.